Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto was born with an Angal bloodline? Part 6. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this and comment for next part. And now let's start the fanfic. Over the course of the 3 weeks, Jiraiya worked hard to get Naruto even further ahead in his training than he was already, while at the same time getting to know his estranged godson and getting a proper assessment of his abilities. The two worked hard together over the past 3 weeks, and during that time they both held a multitude of spars, with Jiraiya coming out the victor on a few occasions, Naruto holding the majority in victories, and the remainder being ties. However, that was the only thing that transpired over the past 3 weeks, as both the young and old man spent time getting to know each other. Jiraiya also took that time to tell Naruto everything he wanted to know about his parents and answer any questions that he wanted answered about them and himself. He had to say that that was his favorite part over the last 3 weeks, as he really wanted to learn more about his father from a person that had more of a first-hand experience with him, not the articles that Konoha held that barely described anything about the man he called dad. But while the info on his father made him smile, the info on his mother caused suddenness to reign over him, as he has still yet to break ground in the finding of his mother. He didn't know why, but for some reason it felt like no matter how hard he tried to locate her, he just couldn't get a single bit of info to get him started. It was almost as if she didn't want to be found. Yet why was the question? I guess some things just don't change, huh, Kyuubi? Naruto said, with his accomplice grunting loudly before speaking. Well, I wouldn't say that exactly when it comes to that masked teacher of yours. He's really been busting his in training for your upcoming battle, something in which you should also be working harder towards, Kit. Remember, he is viewed as the strongest shinobi currently in this village. Kyuubi said, with Naruto mentally nodding in agreement. I don't plan on taking it easy on our upcoming battle, but I want to truly see if he truly is what people say he is. I want to know if his power is indeed based from what my father instilled in him many years ago. Naruto said with a slight smile on his face. Just remember that he will no doubt pull all the stops to get the victory in hand. Kyuubi said, with Naruto nodding once more before standing up and started to stretch a bit. I'll do that, but for now I better head over to the training field. There's supposed to be some big thing that the Junin prepared for us. Naruto said to Kyuubi before he jumped off the Yondaime's head before biting his thumb and quickly summoning one of his birds to carry him over to the training ground that his team waited in. 30 minutes later, Hokage Tower. The figure dashed towards freedom at the highest speed possible for him, desperate to escape his pursuers. As he made his escape, he used the darkness of his surroundings to the best of his ability. He would not be caught and sent back into that hell, not today, and never again. Panting heavily, he stopped for breath, warily searching his surroundings before sighing, having not located his pursuers. Target located. Raven in position. A voice whispered quietly into an earpiece, the owner eyeing its target. Cherry Blossom here, in position. A second voice whispered through gritted teeth. Gold Rush, stating that this is absolute crap and that target in hand. Came the third voice, with the sound of a screaming cat could be heard coming through the intercom link. This was the 15th time that Team 7 had to take on this mission, and they were tired of it. Well, Sasuke and Sakura were, as that Hellcat would always scratch and claw them to the point of no return, though thankfully when Naruto came along he always grabbed the Hellcat first and would squeeze its neck to make that little bastard suffer for putting them through all this crap. Thank God, I'm so sick of this crap. Sakura said, for once happy about the presence of her third teammate and the fact that he would always take control of this mission and catch that damn cat for them. She had absolutely how this cat managed to escape from his master's home and make it all the way here in Konoha, much less the fact that it was always her team that wastened with catching the feline, though she was happy with the little bit of cash that would come with mission though. I hope he's choking that little furry shit to death. Sasuke said to himself as he ran towards the location that Kakashi told them to return to as his rage subsided within him. He didn't understand why he had to do stupid crap like this when he could be home training to one day defeat his brother in Naruto. As soon as the two teenagers arrived to the location of the rendezvous point, they saw that both Kakashi and Naruto were already there, with Naruto holding the feline by its neck while struggling to get out, though that ended when Naruto pressed a pressure point on the cat's neck, thus knocking it out and giving him some peace and quiet. He then looked towards Kakashi and gave a look that stated that he was ready to kill this cat if something wasn't done to ensure that they never meet again. Kakashi, I'm going to ask you this one more time, can I please kill this goddamn spawn of Satan? Naruto asked, with Kakashi sighing deeply while shaking his head. Naruto, you know that I can't give that order, it's someone's pet. Kakashi said. Shit. This damn thing has ran away from its home approximately 137 times this year alone, with the previous year being 212, so can you honestly tell me that this thing wants to be someone's pet? Naruto asked, with Kakashi sighing deeply, as he knew how the boy felt about the cat. Hell, he hated that cat too. During his short term as a genin before being promoted to Junin, he and his team was forced to catch that hell cat 483 consecutive times, and that was just in 1 year. And just like his student, he too begged his master to allow him to kill the hellish feline and rid the world of its nonsense, but just like now, his sensei couldn't allow him to kill someone else's belongings. But then a thought came to mind that made him ponder on that before a large smirk came to his face. Maybe he could allow it. I know, Naruto, but I just let you kill someone's pet, illegally. Kakashi said, with Naruto raising an eyebrow at that. What exactly are you getting at, Kakashi? Naruto said, with Kakashi stroking his chin as if he just came up with a brilliant scheme. What if instead of me making it an order, how's about I instead have the Hokage make it a law? He said, with Naruto pondering on that before he to stroke genius. Why, you brilliant bastard, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Naruto said, with Kakashi chuckling to himself. Yes, I'll make a petition that will give us the right to kill that cat as long as we find it to be a detriment to our sanity. Yes, and as long as it's legal, then the daimyo's wife will have no choice but to stop getting cats or to up her security for the hellish felines. Kakashi said, with Sasuke and Sakura walking up and pulling a pen from somewhere behind them, and asked the same thing that ran through their mind when they heard that. Where do we sign? Oh yes, this would be a glorious day indeed. The day Team 7 found the way to slay the hell beast known as the cat retrieval missions. 2 minutes later, Hokage office. Within 2 minutes, Team 7 now stood before the Hokage, who was glad that the daimyo's wife had her cat back in her hands and was out of this village. So far the cat ran away 20 times, with each genin team taking a good amount of those missions, but after seeing the genin's deep smirk he could tell that something was planned, and it wouldn't be pretty. Okay, Team 7, seeing as how you have completed your 25th D rank mission, you are now eligible to take on a C rank mission. He said, with the team instantly accepting the mission, as they were tired of the D rank mission they had to take. There was one where they had to babysit about 5 kids, and all of them cried whenever Sakura and Sasuke were around, but Naruto would always do better than them. The two genin would never understand how a boy was able to take great care of 5 kids, who would always giggle and laugh whenever he was around them, or would want to be picked up by him, yet they could get either one of them to stop crying. Little did they forget though, Naruto already had a child, so he would have knowledge on how to take care of kids and do it well enough to make them all happy. Naruto couldn't help but laugh at the amount of hitting and crying those kids did to his teammates, though he honestly didn't care. Alright then, your team will be responsible for the escort and protection of a man named Tazuna. You are to escort him to Wave Country and guard him there until the bridge he is building over there is completed. The most you can expect on this mission is a small band of bandits from time to time. You are to pack for a 2-week stay in Wave, but for now, I would like you to meet your client. Let him in, Sarutobi said, with the guards opening the door. However, nobody noticed Naruto's eyebrows rising slightly as their heads turned towards the opening door. They then saw an old man walk in, dressed in a slightly ragged shirt and pants with a pair of glasses and a hat, while reeking of sake due to the large jug in his hands. He looked disdainfully down upon the two of the three genin and grunted loudly as he took a sip of his alcohol. I asked for a competent team to escort me home, not a bunch of snot-nosed some kids that look like they just learned how to walk. Even the kid with the bright blonde hair looks like he's ready to run. The second danger shows itself, said Tazuna, as he was about to take another swig of his drink, and only to be surprised when he saw it in the hands of Naruto. He then watched as the boy chugged the remaining contents in the bottle before chucking it past the head of Tazuna, which startled him greatly and caused all the alcohol in his system to burn out instantly. Damn, and I thought Tsunade drank a lot. Hiruzen thought to himself. You would be wise not to pick fights against people you don't know, it could get you killed in the long run, old man. Naruto said with Tazuna merely looking at the broken bottle that once held his sake in it before nodding vigorously. It was there that the Hokage decided to bring back the attention to himself with a loud cough, thus causing all heads to turn back to him. Very well then, now that you are acquainted with your client, you three are to go pack your bags and be ready to leave in 1 hour. Dismissed. Hiruzen said with Naruto and Kakashi leaving via body fare while Sakura and Sasuke left through the door with Tazuna in tow, though if anyone were to look closely as the old man they would see that he was pondering on something. 2 hours later, Konoha Highway. Team 7 could currently be found walking along the road known as the Konoha Highway, which was the main road that connected Konoha with most of the other main roads around the village that would lead to just about any place you wish to travel to. The team of 4 were currently walking in a regular stance that would ensure full around-the-clock protection of their client if anything bad were to take place. Seeing as this would be a standard C-rank mission, the most that they would have to deal with would be bandits, thieves, and wannabe ninja trying to get an easy buck out of them. The formation they followed was a simple diamond pattern which saw Naruto take the front, Sasuke and Sakura taking the sides and Kakashi taking up the rear. It was fairly quiet and the group enjoyed the peaceful silence, though Sakura chose to ruin that by asking Tazuna some questions pertaining to his homeland. Of course the old man answered them, which lead to Kakashi giving an explanation on the shinobi system and how things worked as in mission hiring and the leaders of each major governing village in the elemental countries. But as that was going on, Naruto saw that the old man looked nervous about something but couldn't quite put his finger on it. Kid. He's lying to you. Kyuubi said with Naruto inwardly nodding at that. I figured as much with the info the guys gave me about Wave being in a critical situation, though I don't know why they wouldn't give him the money to pay for a higher class mission. Hell, I would have given him the money. Naruto thought responded as Tazuna continued to show signs of his nervousness and anxiety. Maybe it was to ensure that nothing would happen to him as he left his home, or probably to protect something important. Kyuubi said, well, we'll just have to wait and see how this turns out. I don't want to raise any Florida, Naruto was saying before his gaze caught on to a small puddle in the middle of the road, thus causing a smirk to build up on his face. Well, I'll be damned, those bastards decided to meet and greet us. Naruto said with Kyuubi laughing loudly. Oh yeah, Kit, just don't do the same thing that you did last time. Kyuubi said with Naruto merely chuckling at that before preparing to counter-attack. Duly noted Q. Naruto responded to his fox companion as he and his team walked past the puddle with no one else noticing its existence besides Kakashi, who simply chose to not point it out and let whatever they were planning to go as they planned. It took no less than 2 seconds for the attack to begin as 2 figures dressed in camo pants and tattered cloaks arose from the water. They both had black hair and wore gas masks with wickedly clawed gauntlets on opposing arms that were connected with a chain made of small interlocking blades. They also had horned forehead protectors with the hidden mist symbol and a slash going through the middle, identifying them as Nuke Nin from Kurigakure no Sato, the village hidden in the mist. Then, without so much as a warning, one of the 2 shinobi hopped on the other's arm like a bird, right before being flung towards the team of Konoha Nin and the bridge builder with a long-bladed battle chain connecting them together and ready to dice anyone to mince meat. However, they wouldn't have the opportunity for long as the airborne shinobi was suddenly stopped by Naruto hitting him with an uppercut before connecting with strong kick across Thalen's chest, sending him crashing into his partner and causing both men to skid along the ground before they both got off the ground. The moment that the sound of grunting and skidding was heard, it caused all heads to turn towards Naruto, and were about to engage until they noticed that the other two weren't attacking. Naruto stood before the two shinobi with his arms crossed with a small smirk on his face before he spoke up in a calm voice. I see that you two are still exactly the same since the last time that I saw you. However, I must say that you two have indeed improved since our last meeting, though I'm a little disappointed at your usage of camouflage. You guys should have known not to use something so exposing as a puddle when it hasn't rained within the last 2 weeks, especially when you're after a target that's protected by two high-class shinobi. Naruto said, with the two shinobi that were known as the Demon Brothers bowing their heads in disgrace for what they have done so far in the eyes of their superior. Sorry Naruto-sama, we were just doing the job that the others gave us to ensure that the old man was safe and that you were with him, said one of the shinobi duo to Naruto's right that was known as Gozu with his older brother Maizu. Yeah, our genjutsu has a weakness where it blocks our vision, so we would have to rely on our senses instead of our sight, Maizu said with Naruto nodding at that. Very well then, is there any more information that you have to give me? Naruto said with Maizu reaching into his pouch and pulling out 3 scrolls and handed them to Naruto. Naruto examined all 3 and saw that 2 of them held the symbols for 2 of his spies while the other was addressed to him from his group. He opened that one and quickly scanned it before nodding his head as he pulled out a pen and wrote something on the bottom before handing it back to Maizu and tossing another scroll to Gozu. Show that to the gatekeepers and they will allow you a meeting with the Hokage since he's aware of this, and hand him that scroll. Answer anything that's asked of you except for those pertaining to myself or the others, then head back out and meet up with Nobunaga. Tell him that I want both of you posted there until I am ready for your stance. Naruto said with both shinobi nodding their heads before they quickly rushed towards the Leaf Village. Naruto, what was all that about? Kakashi asked with the other 2 genin looking very confused about what just transpired. Yeah, why would you send our attackers back our home? Shouldn't we have had them arrested? Sakura asked, as she never saw something like that and once more made her wonder just who was her blonde-haired teammate. And what were in those scrolls that they gave you, or some kind of training scrolls? Sasuke asked with a small growl at the thought of the blonde getting more training than him. All that is a work in progress and you'll see the result very soon. However, you need not worry about them as they work for me and are 2 of my most loyal subordinates. Plus they stated that there are more of my subordinates within Wave Country, so we need not worry about any future attacks. Those 5 have probably already turned them into bowls of red jelly, Naruto said, as he turned to the group, and then at a nervous Tazuna after being found out about his real reasons for being scared. Really? Well, that is a relief, said Kakashi, as he was pleased that they now had some form of intel, and it helped them prepare for what was ahead of them. Under normal circumstances, when the rank of a mission was increased due to unforeseen circumstances, Kakashi would have been forced to either cancel the mission to allow a more qualified and experienced team to take over or call for backup. But now with the inclusion of Naruto's added intel, that meant that Naruto had allies within the area they were going towards, so essentially there wasn't much else to be alarmed of in Wave. Yes, but at the same time it means that there may be more serious measures involved, as they wouldn't send out those 2 unless something major was going on, Naruto said with Tazuna sighing deeply before going into explanation about situation in Wave Country, since he figured that they already knew what was about to go down. After hearing the tale, Kakashi began to ponder on what should be done at this moment, since the situation has clearly changed well beyond what they could handle. I guess I would have to leave it up to them, Kakashi thought to himself before looking towards Naruto. What do you propose we do? Kakashi said as Naruto was the official secondary leader of this team and he was more than likely to make an appropriatissement of the situation that they were in. Normally he would value all of their opinions, but he already knew both Sasuke and Sakura's answers, Sasuke would say continued due to the prospect of getting some fights and go on some power trip, and Sakura would more than likely be biased with Sasuke's opinion, totally disregarding her own safety and that of her team's. Naruto on the other hand has been a proven leader time and time again, so he was certain that whatever the blonde decided in this moment would be the proper gathering of the situation. Looking at the situation we are in, it would be logical for us to continue on with the mission, as I'm sure the kiddies are in more need of experience outside of the village. Naruto said, getting scowls from both Sasuke and Sakura. However, I propose that we call for a backup team, as I know for certain that while all we will be dealing with is bandits, it would be better to have the numbers at 8 instead of 4. Besides, while I know that my friends and I can handle that little bitch Gato, I want to at least ensure that you guys can handle him too. Naruto said, with Kakashi nodding his head. Very well then, we will stay on this mission, though let's go find a spot to camp so that I can send out a call for backup. He said, with everyone nodding their heads, and quickly headed towards an area to camp out. But as they walked, a thought went through Tezuna's head as he looked at the back of Naruto. He then began to examine the teen for a moment before he came to a conclusion that caused him to become inwardly shocked at the circumstances that he was in. This can't be the person that they told me to rendezvous with. He's so young, a child at that. There is no possible way that he could be their leader. Tezuna thought as he ran down the mental list of the things that the 4 guardians, as they were called by the people of his village, gave him to locate their leader. At first the old man wondered why they wanted him to track down their leader, as they had already proven that they were more than strong enough to handle anything that Gato sent their way. So why would they need their leader to begin with? Was it for something important? I don't know why they asked me to find their leader, but I just pray that it's not you, young man. Tezuna thought as they continued on the road towards the campsite. 3 hours later, the group of 5 continued traveling for several hours until the sky grew dark and it was time to set up camp, since they wanted to get as much sleep in as possible in case of an ambush. They decided on a spot in the woods, not too far from the main road to keep them from getting lost and not too close to the road where anyone can see them. It was decided that the team watch would be Kakashi first, Naruto second, Sasuke third, Sakura fourth, and Kakashi taking up the remainder, though Kakashi was sure that he would have them all be ready to go by the time of the 5th shift, and hopefully the backup squad would get here by that time. At the moment Kakashi was in the middle of his shift, though he noticed that Naruto went off training once Sasuke and Sakura were asleep, something that he couldn't blame the blonde for, since he was sure that the Uchiha would try to spy on him to see his secret techniques, and the pink-haired girl would probably just do it because she was curious, or doing it to give info to Sasuke. He could understand the blonde unwillingness to have an audience during his training sessions, as it was something that many shinobis took personal value from. He hated the idea of training with onlookers, as it ruined the idea of surprising someone other than an enemy. However, it was at that moment that a thought went through his mind and the challenge that he set out to the teen. He had been training vigorously since that day, preparing himself for impending battle that would undoubtedly be his only way of earning the boy's respect, but was he ready for it was the question. You seem to be deep in thought, Hatake-sensei. Came the voice of Naruto behind him, thus causing him to look behind his back and see the blonde teen standing upside down on a branch behind him with his arms crossed. Sighing deeply, Kakashi spoke while examining his hand for a moment before he nodded to himself and crumpled his palm into a fist. I wish to fight you soon, but not until I get enough power to properly give you a challenge. Kakashi said before pulling out a scroll and tossing it to the blonde teen, who caught it and examined it for a moment. That right there is my first original technique, Reikiri. I want you to learn it and use it during our fight. Kakashi said, with Naruto scoffing loudly before he spoke. That's such an unusual act, Hatake-sensei. May I ask why you decided to give me this? Naruto asked, with the silver-haired shinobi sighing deeply. I now see that after all these years, I've grown complacent in my abilities and became dependent on something that I wasn't even born with. I now wish to see the limits of my abilities and take my skills even further than before. Kakashi said with Naruto looking at the scroll for a moment before a wide grin appeared on his face. I look forward to our battle, Hatake. I truly hope that you come at me with all that you have. Naruto said before he vanished in a swirl of feathers. As do I, Naruto. Kakashi said before he turned his head towards a large mountain and saw that a storm was currently built up around the peak of it. After a quick nod to himself, the silver-haired Junin formed a quick shadow clone and headed deep into the forest and towards the mountain. It was time to get even more serious about this and tame the wild storm. Meanwhile, unknown location. In an unknown part of the world, a large figure awoke to the sound of something dropping in front of his doorstep, thus causing him to groan at having to be awakened from his nice slumber. He walked towards his front door and opened it to see a small bird perched on his porch with a small scroll in its mouth. The figure groaned loudly as he held his arm out and walked as the bird flew to his hand and dropped the scroll before vanishing in a puff of smoke. The figure then opened the scroll and read the contents within it before sighing deeply and walking back within his home for a moment before walking out again with a bag in his hand and began to walk north of his home. You bastards better have a good reason for waking me up, he said as he continued forward, already knowing where to go from there. The day has finally come when the greatest creation to ever step foot on this planet has once more celebrated his birthday, and that creation is me, bitches. That's right, everyone. Today I turn 21 and man am I happy. I can finally drink legally and I intend to do that tonight as I partake of tails, wet willies, and rum. I want to thank my awesome mom for giving birth to me and not choosing to get an abortion, my stepmom for all the love that she has given me since the day I met her, and my jackass pops for not being in my life so that real men could be my dad. But most importantly, I want to thank my Lord and Savior for keeping me here and allowing me to live to see this day, as well as allowing my grandparents the same luxury. This year will be awesome, as my team won the Ing Super Bowl. On that, Patriots fans, I already got a grand from my school, and I helped 2 people a couple of weeks ago. I am going to WrestleMania 28 to see Rock, Cena, HHH, Taker 3, and Punk, Jericho. I'm moving away from Pain in the Miami to Jersey, and I will be getting straight A's for the first time in my life. Anyway, this chapter is the intro to the Wave arc, and while I wanted to add more, I felt that I stopped it at the right spot. I wanted to give you guys something on my birthday anyway, so please enjoy. Ch.14 Royal Flush. The morning arrived fast for the group of 5 on their journey towards Wave Country, with Sakura and Sasuke fully up and ready to embark on a now more serious mission than what they previously held. They quickly packed up their things and awoke the old man Tazuna before awaiting the presence of their teammate and sensei to appear before them, though surprisingly neither Naruto nor Kakashi were present in the campsite, slightly surprising them. They were about to call the names of both missing persons but were soon cut off when said missing persons appeared before them, with Kakashi holding burn marks all over his cloths and Naruto with bandages wrapped around his entire right hand along with a black glove. Where have you 2 been? We could have been attacked by an enemy. Sakura asked, with Naruto scoffing before snapping his fingers, thus causing 4 clones to appear before them all. It was here that Sakura now realized the silent gesture that the blonde boy made and decided that it was best not to push the subject, as the 4 clones exploded and the information returned to his mind. What did you 2 do last night? Are you giving Naruto some kind of special training, Kakashi-sensei? Sasuke asked, with Naruto scoffing at that as he flexed his right hand, though he slightly recoiled at the pain he felt, something that all 3 shinobi caught dead on. Though nothing was acted on, it was here that Kakashi coughed loudly, thus getting all attention to himself while Naruto sorted through the information that his clones gathered for him during their night mission. Okay squad, we will remain here until reinforcements from the village arrive, but until then I will be teaching you 3 something that is highly vital to your shinobi training: chakra control. The one-eyed Junin said, with Naruto once more scoffing at that, since he had a pretty good idea as to what Kakashi would be teaching the kiddies. Kakashi-sensei, we already learned chakra control at the academy. Sakura asked, with Kakashi smiling at her. Well, Sakura, that is indeed true, but what you will be learning is a different method of chakra control, and to do it you will have to climb trees. Kakashi said, with Sasuke and Sakura raising an eyebrow while Naruto simply sighed at that, as he was proven right on Hissumption. I can't believe that old man allowed these weaklings to leave the academy without learning how to use the damn tree walking exercise. Hell, my daughter knows it and she's not even eligible to enter the academy yet. Naruto thought as he remembered showing Tsukiko how to walk on trees without using her hands, along with walking on top of water the last time he saw her. Remember, Kit, these two weren't trained by a sadistic bastard like you were. In fact, I shouldn't be surprised that they never even heard of the exercise to begin with. Kyuubi said, with Naruto sighing at that. But still, Kyuubi, they should have at least given them something in the advanced arts. Hell, this is about as basic as you can get. Even still, you shouldn't condemn them on that exactly. Plus, what happened to you when you first learned the tree and water walking techniques? Kyuubi said in frustration, with Naruto chuckling to himself. Oh yeah, I had walk up a tree covered with spikes and walk across a river of boiling water. Naruto responded, with the fox chuckling as well. But Kakashi-sensei, we learned how to climb trees back at the academy. What does that have to do with making us stronger and improving our chakra control? Sakura said, truly confused, something to which Naruto snorted loudly, though didn't address the looks he received from the others. Care to add something on the subject, Naruto? Kakashi asked, with Naruto merely rolling his eyes before he walked towards the trees that Kakashi delegated for them to climb. Everyone watched closely as Naruto continued on towards the tree and placed one foot on the bark before picking his next foot off the ground and stood suspended over the ground, surprising both Sasuke and Sakura since they've never seen something like that before. Naruto then walked up the entire length of the tree before walking to the underside of a branch and stayed there for 20 seconds before releasing the hold his chakra had on the bark of the tree. He then free fell to the ground, causing Sasuke and Sakura to look on with wide eyes before watching Naruto flip himself upright and land gracefully on the ground. Just this, don't cry after you bust your 20 times from falling. Naruto said as he walked towards the location in which Tazuna could be found sitting, but not before stopping short and looking back to the others. Kakashi, if Sakura does well on her first try, then make her do it again. With such a pathetic chakra levels, it would be simple for her to control her chakra well enough. Naruto said as he sat down near the old man, and like he expected, he heard Sasuke yell at Kakashi to tell him how to do that. To which the one-eyed shinobi gave him a bullshit explanation as to that if this technique was mastered, then you could master any jutsu. Naruto then saw Sasuke and Sakura run simultaneously, both clutching onto the kunais that Kakashi gave them, and like he predicted, Sakura did the best out of the duo, to which Kakashi noticed easily and thus made the girl continue the exercise like Naruto instructed him to do. As the group trained on, Tazuna took that moment to examine the blonde teen for a few moments before deciding to say something on the matter that has been bothering him since the beginning of this journey. Excuse me, young man, but may I ask you something? Tazuna said, with Naruto looking towards his direction with a tired expression. It depends on how relevant it is to me. Naruto said, with Tazuna nodding his head. As you know, my country is in dire need of assistance from your village, and I had to lie to you guys in order to afford a team that would at least have a chance at defeating the threat, but there is something that I didn't tell you guys. Tazuna said, seeing that he had the blonde teen's interest. You see, about a year ago, my son-in-law was murdered by the bastard that is doing this to my home country and was nearly finished with killing us all off. Tazuna said while seeing that Naruto was still intrigued by the tale. You see, young man, 3 months ago that man was going to annihilate us with a giant raid he had planned, in which a majority of his bandits would rush to the village and slaughter all the men and their sons while taking the women and their daughters to be sold off to whore houses and prostitution rings across the elemental nations. Well, before that could be executed, a group of Rouge warriors showed up out of nowhere and destroyed his entire army within no less than 30 seconds. We couldn't believe how close we all came to dying that day as well as how we were saved, but when we asked them why they helped us, they just stated that it was a business deal and nothing more. During that time, my country slowly began to regain the lost confidence in life that the tyrant had stolen from us, and that angered him greatly. So great that he actually hired twice as many bandits than the ones that he lost choiced him, along with a multitude of rouge shinobi from both the Omegakure and Iwagakure. When we asked our heroes why they didn't kill Gato during the raid, they just stated that they wanted to elevate this situation so that it wouldn't be boring for them when they kill him. They also instructed me to come to Konohagakure and hire a group of shinobi from there and make sure that we get their leader to come along with the shinobi. Tazuna said before looking towards Naruto with a stern expression, "Are you that leader that they required my hiring for this mission?" Tazuna asked with Naruto merely laughing to himself slightly before spoke up. "Old man, I'm not a leader of anything yet, they were only pulling your leg." Naruto said with Tazuna grabbing his arm, though in a way that a concerned relative would do for their family member. "Don't try to steer this any other way than it already is, young man, because you weren't then. You have held those two shinobi's respect like that yesterday, something in which they told me would happen." The old man said with Naruto's facial expression changing slightly, something that Tazuna caught. "Why is it that your hands are stained with blood at such a young age and that you're able to take such a willing ease with the way of battle so young?" Tazuna asked with Naruto looking his dead in the eye while making sure that there were no onlookers trying to listen in on the conversation between the two. Seeing that Kakashi was distracted from training both the Uchiha and the Haruno, Naruto spoke up, "I've been to many places, old man, and have done many things in such a short amount of time. I've killed for hire, I've mercilessly taken life after life without the bat of an eyelid, I've taken people away from their families, sometimes right in front of them, yet to this day I'm not sorry for it nor feel one ounce of regret for it. I've had a child before I've even hit my teens, I've had multiple lovers around a majority of the countries that people have never even heard of. I've slept with married women that lusted for me, and I've even slept with women just to get something in return for the pleasure or to gain some favor to where I resided at the time. I've fought alongside powerful shinobi and figureheads, I've watched good men lose their lives, I've seen parents stolen from their children, I've seen women being captured to be tortured and raped, I've seen kids watch their parents die right in front of them, I've watched people lose their families right in front of them. I've recused women and children that were kidnapped to be sold on the black market, I've seen monsters try to assassinate their own family. I've buried countless friends, allies, and heroes. I had to say goodbye to a man that was like a father to me since I lost mine before I even had the chance to meet him, and I've even killed those that were former members under his tutelage." Naruto said as he pulled out a cigarette, lit it up and inhaled the nicotine slowly into his system, which was quickly filtered by the Kyuubi. "I am many of things in this world that most people would judge at the drop of a dime, old man. I'm a murderer that doesn't feel the pain of the deed. I'm nothing more than a toy to most women in the countries that want and still desire to have me with them. I'm the father of a child that was made by accident and can't be around constantly due to the life that he brought her in. I'm a bastard child that has lost two fathers already in his life and currently has no idea as to the whereabouts of his mother. And I'm a guy that contains a great power that many do not understand and would call it a curse due to what has been seen with freaks like me." Naruto said as he exhaled the smoke before he smirked to the old man, "You needn't worry about me, old man. Whether I'm their leader or not is of non-relevance. The only thing that is relevant is that I and my colleges help rid you of the pest problem at your home." Naruto said as he walked away from the bridge builder, who looked at the blonde teen in shock. What has this world come to that children are forced to grow up so fast? Tazuna said as he chose to stay silent as Naruto climbed up a tree and awaited for the reinforcements to arrive. Barely an hour passed by for the group as Naruto suddenly sprang upward and landed on the ground below him, sensing several nearby presences approaching them. Kakashi likewise felt the extra presences near them and quickly placed his book into his pouch before pulling out a kunai. It was there that both Naruto and Guy saw a pair of kunai fly past them, and immediately they knew what was coming as they braced themselves for the impact that was soon to come. Dynamic entry. Sounded two voices as two blurs sailed through the air before appearing in front of the two alert shinobi with two long kicks connecting on their raised arms. Do you really have to do that, Guy? You know how annoying that is. Kakashi said as he saw his friend jump back and stand before him with an extended thumbs up with a sparkle in white teeth. Sorry, Kakashi. Just trying to make sure my eternal rival hasn't faltered in his training. Guy said with Kakashi sighing as he shook his head. Guy, we just had a spar a couple of days ago, how could I allow my training to falter that early? Kakashi said with Guy's eyes suddenly turning into flames before he began to spout about the flames of youth, causing sweat drops to fall behind the onlookers nearby. It seems like they never change, Lee. Naruto said with Lee nodding his head as his teammates appeared beside their teammate, each one holding a wide smirk on their faces at seeing their comrade and friend before them, with Tenten giving him a hug and Neji holding up his hand, which was shook by the blonde. Yes, Guy-sensei would not stop talking about beating Kakashi during this mission. Lee said with Naruto looking him over and saw that the once green beast took on quite the metamorphosis since he was last seen by the blonde, with his hair now being longer and reaching past his shoulders with his eyebrows trimmed to a more manageable degree. He also saw that he was now wearing a forest green body suit with full black armor over it that appeared to be a lighter set of armor than the one he trained in, with the shoulder pads, arm bracers and thigh bracers removed, and his sword strapped to his left side with his headband holding it in place, though the band was replaced with a longer black one. I see you got some new armor there. Naruto commented, to which Lee responded with a smirk. Oh yeah, this is a very special armor created by Tenten's dad that has a very special feature that I had him add to it, which would allow me to remove it with a burst of chakra. Lee said with Naruto nodding at that, since that was a good idea to have a release mechanism on the armor, as there was no way in the world that an enemy would allow his opponent time to remove his armor to get stronger. All talk there ceased when Kakashi and Guy called out to them, thus alerting them that they would be needed for a debriefing on this mission. Okay, now that Team Guy is here, we can now continue on with this mission. Kakashi said with all eyes being focused on him, though Naruto already knew what was going to be discussed since he held the most experience out of the genin present. As of this moment, this mission is A-ranked, meaning that the dangers have now tripled compared to what would have been expected from AC ranked, due to it holding enemy encountering with shinobi from other villages. We will also be entering an unknown territory, with which the enemy will have full knowledge of and will more than likely stage an ambush on us. Each of you must look out for one another and never allow your guard to be let down for a moment, as in the shinobi world anything can happen in a matter of seconds. Kakashi said with each of the genin nodding in understanding, though Naruto and Team Guy nodded for more personal reasons. Okay guys, let's head out. Guy said with the group nodding as they headed out towards the old man's home in Wave Country. Several hours later, the group of 9 could currently be found on 2 separate boats traveling at a snail's pace towards the other end of the broader to Wave Country, with a huge bridge being in the foggy background, a view in which everyone took in besides Naruto, who chose to keep his focus on the battles that were soon to come. He didn't know why, but he knew that something big was coming in the future and it would change the entire landscape of the life that he now had, though what that was continued to elude his thoughts. The fact alone that his friends were waiting for him in Wave Country alone was enough to spark this paranoia within him, and while it was easy to ignore usually, this time it couldn't so much as be avoided. Naruto-kun, is everything okay with you? You're being awfully silent, Tenten asked, breaking Naruto from his slight trance for a moment. Sorry, I've just been very deep in thought lately, Naruto said with Tenten giving him a worried expression. What exactly are you so deep in thought about? The brown-haired girl asked, with the blonde glancing towards her for a moment before he closed his eyes. Don't worry about my thoughts, Tenten, you aren't able to handle them, Naruto said through closed eyes, missing the slight hurt expression that flashed across the brown-haired girl's face, though she chose not to address them now, simply do it later when it was just them and nobody else. She was fully determined to get into the heart of Namikaze Naruto and knew that now was the perfect opportunity to get her chance, since the Haruno has proven to be unworthy of even getting slight affection from the blonde boy. Kit, I take it that you sense their presence already? Kyuubi asked with a mental nod being given from the blonde teen. Oh yeah, they're practically oozing out their location to me. Naruto responded to his furry companion as he saw that they were arriving closer to the border by the second with anticipation building higher within his body. After all, isn't that what they are trying to signal me through this mist? Naruto thought as he felt through the mist and noticed that there were small traces of chakra hidden within it. He then looked towards Kakashi, Guy, and Neji and saw that they too were aware of this as well, but since an attack hasn't commenced, choose to remain silent. The feeling of battle must be high if they are willing to signal you this close, Kyuubi said as he too had the feeling of expecting quite the fierce battle approaching by the moment. Oh yes, there is going to be quite the bloodbath in the next upcoming weeks and I can't wait. Naruto said while unknowingly feeling a deep smirk building on his face, a smirk that Tenten and most of the others caught and were now wondering just what kind of thoughts were racing through his mind. Please stay quiet, we are nearing the island, said the driver of the boat as the border soon became visible to everyone present. Neji quickly shut off his Byakugan per order of his sensei to save chakra for later uses, which was good for him because his eyes were really getting strained on that duration. He has happy though that there was no sign of enemies present near them, so they didn't have to worry about enemy shinobi, but he knew that he would have to use his eyes again very soon. It was there however that Naruto quickly sent out 3 chakra bursts that was away from the others and soon felt multiple presences not very far from him, causing the smirk to grow even bigger. Oh yeah, the shit's about to hit the fan. Naruto said mentally as he and the others left the boat and began to traverse through the land of waves while not knowing the set of eyes that were watching them from a distance. Looks like he's finally here, about damn time, don't you think? Said one of the figures hidden in the shadows as he turned to see his teammates sitting behind him. Oh yeah, let's move out. Another voice said as he and the other 4 vanished into thin air. 1 hour later, the group could currently be found walking along a path towards the main land with a large lake before them in full silence, knowing well that this was not a situation that called for communication and that they needed to be on full alert seeing as how this was a high-class mission with unknown enemy involvement. Kakashi and Guy took the lead of the group with their genin teams standing behind them with Naruto and Tenten standing side by side in front of Tazuna, Sasuke and Sakura standing on both sides of the old man with Lee and Neji taking up the rear with Neji utilizing his Byakugan to see potential enemies. Naruto himself was anxiously awaiting the enemies that were bound to show up within the next few moments and he was really getting a high feeling of battle rising up from within. Tenten took a few glances at the blonde boy and noticed that he was getting anxious about something but couldn't pinpoint on it until she could no longer take it and asked him quietly. Naruto, is everything okay? You're acting a little weird. She asked with Naruto suddenly stopping short and turning his head to the right, looking deep into the forest beside his group before whipping out a shuriken, thus catching everyone's attention before watching him chuck the shuriken towards a random location. Naruto, why did you throw a shuriken? There is nothing out there. Sakura said before watching shurikens and kunais fly out of the area and land in front of Naruto and Tenten, slightly scaring the girl. They set a trap for us knowing full well how we would be protecting the old man, even going as far as to properly set it up so that it could only be tripped manually. They probably set it up knowing how we were going to protect the old man and would simply ambush us after he was killed. Though they didn't expect for me to be here, right bitches? Naruto said as everyone beside himself tensed up at his proclamation of enemy involvement nearby. It was here that 5 shinobi appeared before the group, all of them grabbed in black cloaks with red clouds on them with masks covering their faces, each mask holding a different symbol of a clover, a diamond, a heart, a spade, and a giant one. Before anyone could say a thing, the ones wearing the heart and one masks rushed towards Kakashi and Guy, who reacted to their approach and engaged the two charging shinobi while unknowingly opening a path for the other three to engage as well, which they did by surrounding the blonde teen. The others' eyes widened at that and were about to tell the blonde teen to run but were too late as a dome of fire suddenly appeared and closed off Naruto from his group. As the fire dome appeared, both Kakashi and Guy were suddenly taken aback by the blaze, allowing the other two to get the upper hand on their opponents by backhanding them away from said dome. The Junin then quickly got themselves together and stood before their genin to protect them, with said genin also doing the same, though they were actually anxious to help get the blonde out of his predicament and help him. Neji, use Byakugan and scan to see if there are more enemies nearby, then check to see if there are any weak points within that barrier. Kakashi said, with the Hyuga clan member nodding his head and was about to activate his Byakugan but was interrupted by a kunai sailing past his cheek. Sorry, but I'm afraid that I can't allow you to see what's going on in there, said the one with the heart mask, the voice sounding female. What did you do to Naruto-kun? Tenten yelled as she prepared to use one of her weapon scrolls in order to help free the blonde teen. We have done nothing but merely give him time to talk with our friends. Once they are done, then the barrier will dissipate, said the one behind the one mask, the voice behind it sounding male. And just what might that conversation be? Kakashi said as he reached to his headband in order to reveal his Sharingan, knowing full well that it will be needed in this type of situation. Strictly business, nothing more, the heart mask said. Who are you guys and what does Naruto have to do with this? Sakura asked as she stood protectively in front of Tazuna, who was now extremely confused on what was occurring. We are a group of shinobi under the organization of Akatsuki, and your blonde friend just happens to be someone we are allied with, the one mask said, causing everyone to look on in shock at what they heard. Within the dome, Naruto currently stood within the dome of fire with his three opponents. Clover Mask, Diamond Mask, and Spade Mask stood before him in menacing fashion, while the blonde teen simply grinned at them as he summoned his blade Gunshin from its scroll and quickly drew the blade from its sheath, while his three opponents also withdrew scrolls, and soon three very huge blades were held respectively in each person's hand. Naruto whistled loudly at the sight of the three swords before him and knew full well that this would no doubt be a very hard fight to finish, and thus he quickly called on the fox's first tail. So it's 3 against 1 each. I would say that those are pretty even odds, he said as he took up a quick stance, and barely a second later saw that the three masked shinobi were already on the attack with the swords held high above their heads only to be forcefully brought down. The impact of the three swords formed a large crater on the ground, but saw that the blonde teen was nowhere to be found, until they heard a call behind them, fire release, fireball jutsu, thus making them turn to see a large fireball heading for all of them, though it was quickly extinguished when the diamond masked figure sliced through the fireball with ease before another one was fired off from the spade mask, this time being in much larger size as compared to Naruto's. The blonde quickly formed several seals and soon formed a mud wall that blocked the fireball before quickly dodging to the left when the mud wall was suddenly sliced up by the clover mask, who was now accompanied by the diamond mask, both of which quickly rushed the blonde teen with the blades prepared to slice Naruto in half. The teen quickly hopped over the twin attacks from two Zanbatus before sending out two quick strikes with Gunshin, which grazed the arms of the two masked shinobi before they turned into water. Naruto soon cursed to himself before raising his arms up to block a double strike from the two masked shinobi, thus causing a brief struggle of power as Naruto's sword fought against the masked shinobi's big blades. Damn, I didn't think you guys had that much strength in you. Well, let's see how that compares to mine, Naruto said before he suddenly pushed back his opponents before sending two more quick strikes at them, but was once more greeted by the sight of their bodies turning into water. He soon looked over his shoulders to find all three shinobi charging at him with their blades ready to dismember him, thus making him quickly turn on his heels and engage the three shinobi. He quickly clashed with Spade Mask first, parrying against his strike before ducking to the right as Diamond Mask sent a slash to right before connecting with a smooth kick to his opponent's chest. He then jumped over the hunched man as Clover Mask sent a strong downward slash that connected with the ground, right before kicking Diamond Mask into Clover Mask and making fall to the ground. Naruto then grasped his sword with both hands and quickly parried another strike by Spade Mask before finally getting back on the offensive and sending out several strikes at Spade Mask, all of which were either blocked or dodged. Naruto sent several more slashes before he quickly hopped back as both Diamond and Clover Mask recovered from the attacks and soon stood side by side with Spade Mask, who quickly placed his sword on his back before blazing through a set of seals along with the other two. Naruto quickly recognized that all three seal sequences were simultaneous to a technique he knew, thus making him blaze through the seals as well and soon stopping on the same hand sign as his opponents.